You know Gray Bar for electrical parts, but there's one more thing you may not be thinking of us for that can help maximize your next project's total value. Our pre-project planning services are designed to help you win the bid, save on labor costs, and keep your installers productive across your entire build. The sooner you call us, the better. Because when we're there from the beginning, we can anticipate your needs and help you solve problems before they become problems. Yep, Gray Bar does that.
We open up this week's episode of the Show Before the Show podcast, and I have a thing about myself as it relates to minor league baseball that I realized last night, and I wanna bounce it off of you, Sam. I realized last night that the easiest way, and this is not a difficult thing to do in the first place, but the easiest way to get me to buy your team's hat is to list on your website only 2 remaining on like size 7 3/8. Because last night, as some of you may know, I'm an alumnus of the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, and my dad is from Nebraska. We've got family in Lincoln and Omaha, and I've been going there since I was a kid, and there is a cultural food delicacy in Nebraska and in the surrounding area called the Runza sandwich. Runza is a fast food chain that is based in Lincoln, had its first store in Lincoln near the university, just up the street from Memorial Stadium, the 3rd largest city in the state of Nebraska on football Saturdays. Runza, which does have some locations. Josh Jackson, our MILB.com writer, and I were having this conversation the other day because he just said to me, explain Runza. And there are locations outside of the state of Nebraska, but it's really a Nebraska thing. And there are various other like bread incarnations like this outside of that region that are pretty much just all the same thing, as we get the weekly shake of the collar in the background from Leica, the official dog of the Show Before the Show podcast. But a Runza basically is like it's like a bread pocket that's filled with ground beef and cabbage and spices and cheese sometimes, and you know, like the legend goes that it was like Czech immigrant farmers would eat it when they were working in the fields, some stuff like that. I know in like the upper Midwest they have pasties, which were I think Russian or German, but they're a very similar thing. It's kind of like, you know, the same type of thing, a bread pocket and meat and vegetables, whatever. But the Omaha Storm Chasers rebranded themselves as the Runzas for a game. They did that as their food item. Everybody's got a food item these days in minor league baseball. Being somebody with a spot near and dear to my heart for the Runza, I had to get one. Went on the Storm Chasers site, which I've done a couple of times through the first couple of months of this season. Just like looked at it and been like, I'll get around to buying it at some point. And yesterday it said size 7 3/8, 2 remaining. And so I had to get it. So if you're looking to get me to buy your hat, that is apparently all I need, is just to know, like, oh, I'm going to miss out on this, which undoubtedly they're ordering more. I don't know. Maybe
I'm sure they will be, yeah.
You know,
but
maybe that's a limited time offer.
I mean, the way to get me to want something is to tell me that I cannot have it.
Right.
Which is like the Brooklyn Cyclones. I think it was last year or 2 years ago. They became the Brooklyn Slices.
Right.
A promotion
similar to something we'll discuss in a little while.
Right. Yeah. Tease that for later, involving New York City and pizza.
Yeah.
But the Brooklyn Cyclones became the Brooklyn Slices, and they had some really cool shirts, and one I really liked that had the Brooklyn skyline like mixed with pizza somehow. And I decided I really wanted the shirt, and then it said sold out. And I not wanted a shirt more than I've wanted that shirt ever since. And I don't think they're reprinting it, and it's killed me ever since. Like they could have said, in your instance, Tyler, like they could have said 10 left, and I'd be like, that's fine, I'll get it.
Right.
Now that there are literally none left in my size, it's one of my 5 biggest regrets.
That's trouble. You got to keep checking on eBay or something like that. There was a World Baseball Classic shirt from the very first WBC. I'm a weirdo WBC fan. I've been to all of them. And I bought one at the first WBC, then ended up being too small. But, of course, I didn't realize until I was already home from the championship game. Can't exactly go back to Petco Park in 2006 and return a WBC shirt when you live 1,500 miles away. But I found the same exact shirt on eBay like 6 months later and bought it, and it was a great decision.
Great decision. Well, I will try that. Or if anybody in Brooklyn is listening right now,
and you've got one,
or like the team itself just has one sitting in the back, something like that, I will pay real American dollars to have it in my possession.
Yeah. Or if you want to give it to us for free. Ben gets stuff for free all the time. I feel like we haven't milked this podcast quite enough yet to get our own stuff for free.
I mean,
so like looking at you, Eugene, because I want your Monarchus hat, and Albuquerque because I want your Mariachis hat, and Hartford because I want your Chivos hat, and Montgomery because I want your Greenbow Biscuits hat. Looking at you, size 7 3/8, just in case you're listening.
I have a Greenbow hat, but I paid money for it. So.
Did you? That'll probably be the next one on my list, because I know with the Copa de la Diversión hats, that's going to be a yearly thing. Like those logos are not going away. It's not a one-time thing. But I feel like the Greenbow Biscuits, that was a one-time deal. I can't imagine that's going to be brought back. And if it is, I can't imagine it's going to be brought back with the same look of that just like perfect Googie era 50s, 60s logo with the biscuit with the big idealized eyes and the bat over his shoulder. God, it's so great. It's so
very
great.
good. Whenever you wear it, you have to be prepared to explain exactly why it's cool.
What's going on in your shirt there?
Yeah, right. Which, like, I'm a Brooklyn hipster. Like, that's our shtick anyways, is wearing something and then having to explain what makes it cool. But then people find it really interesting. So,
yeah, minor league baseball things, as many of our listeners will attest, when you're wearing minor league baseball stuff, it's a conversation starter unlike virtually anything else you will ever own. That is the absolute truth. But they got a good Greenbow Biscuits, like a script t-shirt. Greenbow, in case you're listening and thinking, what on earth are they talking about? Greenbow, and we discussed this a couple weeks ago, was the fictional hometown of Forrest Gump in Alabama. And so the Montgomery Biscuits became the Greenbow Biscuits for a night. And they've got just this fantastic. It reminds you of like an Ebbetsfield Flannels t-shirt of like a minor league team from the 1940s or 50s. Like it's just this great old school logo with a little. He almost looks like Mr. Met, but instead of a baseball, he's got a biscuit for a head. Oh,
yeah, there have been a couple of people who have seen my hat and thought like that's a really cool biscuit logo.
Yeah,
and I'm like, you haven't even seen the 2018 version. How this logo that it's not really retro, but is retro.
Fake logo, this
got
fake
updated.
retro logo evolved over the decades to become the one we know and love today.
Right.
That's the problem with working for minor league baseball is I pay so much of my money back into minor league baseball by buying minor league baseball things. It's an issue, but you know what? It's worth it because I have a hat cluttered full, or a wall cluttered full of hats that one day kids of mine are gonna be like, what was wrong with him? He's so weird.
You're just gonna repackage those for 14th and 15th birthdays.
Exactly. It's probably a smart idea. So with that, we welcome you into this week's episode of the Show Before the Show podcast from MILB.com. My name is Tyler Mon. His name is Sam Dykstra, and we're talking all about minor league baseball. Thanks for tuning into this one, episode number 164. Wherever you found the show, we thank you for tuning in at MILB.com/podcast. We're on iTunes. We are on Google Play and everywhere else you get your podcast. Leave us a rating and review and a subscription if you can. And with that, we'll get started. Coming up in a little bit, Sam tells us about this week's interview subject. You got to be on it today. I was helping out with my mom, had to get her dryer fixed, and she's out of town, so I was being a good son, and so you had to do the interview solo. I'm sorry.
Right. No, that's fine. That's totally fine. We should always tell people, like, you have your shifts that are at night, and I have my shifts during the day, so coordinating these is always difficult. So Tyler's always the one going out of his way to do these during my shifts. So I am more than willing to take on the interviews whenever I can and allow Tyler to help his mother as a good son should.
What a guy.
Yeah. This week's podcast interview is with number 5 Cardinals prospect Andrew Knizner. You will hear him say his own name later. I did that on purpose, not because I don't know how to say it. It's because I want you guys to hear it from the source itself. He's a catcher in that Cardinals system. He's now the top ranked catching prospect in that system only because Carson Kelly has technically graduated. But we talk about that, what it's like to be stuck behind Yadi Molina and Carson Kelly in a system that's really stacked with catchers, how he's kind of developed from being, a 7th round pick in 2016 to being one of the best catching prospects in all of baseball, not just in the St. Louis system, and how he's been able to use, the athleticism that made him a pretty good third baseman in college at NC State into being a pretty good catcher and into being a pretty good hitter and being the all-around package as a catcher for the Cardinals. So fun interview. We get into a lot of that different stuff. You'll be able to hear that here coming up in the second segment.
Andrew, the 10th ranked catching prospect in all minor league baseball, according to MLB Pipeline. So the Cardinals have Yadier Molina at the major league level. They just graduated Carson Kelly, and they've still got a top 10 catching talent in the system, which is pretty impressive. So Andrew's coming up here in a little bit. And with that, we'll get started on 3 strikes for this week's episode of the Show Before the Show. We're going to kick things off on a downer note, and that is with this news that the Toronto Blue Jays top prospect and the second-ranked prospect in all of baseball, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., is out for at least 4 weeks. That as of a few days ago. This news came out on Saturday. But baseball's number 2 overall prospect suffered a strained patellar tendon in his left knee after an awkward slide on Wednesday in his game for AA New Hampshire. The big league club said on Sunday that he will be managed conservatively as he works his way back from the injury. He'll be reevaluated in 4 weeks. Vlad went into second base during a day game on Wednesday, June 6th. It was the 4th inning of that game. Slides in, legged out an infield single actually prior to that, and then slid into second base and immediately signaled over to the dugout to have somebody come out and take a look at him, and then walked off the field shortly thereafter. After that game, New Hampshire manager John Schneider, who was on the show a few weeks ago, said, quote, "He checks out fine, but with him and all of our players, we're just being careful and making sure he's good to go." And then the further tests showed the strain. So, I mean, obviously, this is a big loss for New Hampshire, but I think it cools the conversation around Vlad right now, which may turn out to be a good thing. Vlad was, tearing the cover off the ball and doing everything in his power to reach the major leagues this year. Maybe this lets Vlad go back and be just a productive baseball player for a while without some of that conversation around him as to when is he going to get that call, when is he going to get that call, to be brought back along slowly as the summer gets, deeper and deeper. Maybe this works out better in the long run, but what was your initial reaction to this story?
Yeah, I mean, I see where you're coming from, but mine was just to be, upset, I guess.
Yeah, I'm in the coping phase now.
Right, yeah.
I'm trying to make sense of it because the world is a cruel place where we don't get Vlad crushing now.
Yeah, we're kind of in the acceptance phase that we're going to be a couple weeks without him. But yeah, no, it was upsetting. He had been tearing the cover off the ball, like you said. He's hitting .407 with an OPS of 1.124, 11 homers in 53 games for AA New Hampshire. I wanted to see how far he was going to push that. I mean, you'll remember on previous shows I said I thought he was going to be up by the end of June. That's definitely not going to be the case now. We're not going to see him play anywhere until July. So that's kind of upsetting. What does that mean for the Futures game? It probably rules him out of that, which is too bad because that would have been a great stage. If he's not going to be in the major leagues, to see him take his talents, he definitely would have been the talk of that in Washington, D.C. That takes him out of that probably. As somebody who's going to be at the Futures game, that's upsetting. But I want to see just how far he was going to take it. I wanted to see him continually push the Blue Jays and see what they were going to do. Were they really just pushing things back out of Super 2 concerns and hoping that they would get push back arbitration one more year with him? Was that basically what the worry was, or was it really something defensively? Were they worried he couldn't fix that in the major leagues? Was there a reason why he hadn't been pushed to Buffalo yet? There were reports before the injury. I know John Paul Morosi had something up on this about how they expected to move him up to Buffalo by the end of June. I thought they were going to be more aggressive than that. We won't get that answer now. I hear what you're saying in terms of this kind of cools everybody's jets. We still have to remember he's a 19-year-old third baseman. He did have things to work on. We don't need to be talking about him every week now. We can focus on some other guys. I get that. That's all well and great. Injuries, for lack of a better word, stink everywhere. So to see a guy lose 4 weeks of development time and 4 weeks of chances to show just how good he is at a pretty high stage in baseball is upsetting. And, I'm not entirely worried about what he's going to be when he comes back. As you mentioned, Tyler, they're going to be conservative with him. They don't want to rush him back just to see him do something worse to his leg. He did have an hamstring injury that kept him out a couple games before this left knee injury. Things get kind of linked. I've talked to players before about saying, you focus on one injury, then all of a sudden something else pops up. They want to make sure the entire lower half is healthy, that he can run without problems with it, without having to favor one side, anything like that. So it will be a while before we hear from Vlad again, but when the Blue Jays give him the green light to come back, it's because he's ready to fire, ready to hit 400 again, and I can't wait to see that happen.
Yeah, I mean, the ultimate lesson of this is it's just a huge bummer to not have one of the top talents, if not the top talent in all minor league baseball right now on the field for the next 4 weeks. But you hope that it's something that Vlad is, when he gets back, it's not a super serious injury, and it's something where you get this rest, you're brought back along slowly. If the Jays somehow are able to turn things around, get on a roll, then maybe you get a fresher Vlad contributing to a team that could be fighting for a spot if fortunes, make themselves a little bit more positively available to the Jays as the season rolls along than they have been so far this season. I think the ultimate lesson for Vlad is I don't think you really worry about him and the way he comes back from this because you kind of know who he is as a player. What will be interesting to see is it going to take him time to get back acclimated again? When he misses 4 weeks, are we going to see Vlad come back in a month or a month and a half and go through a couple of weeks where he's really scuffling, or is he going to come right back and jump into the fray and be the same guy that we saw right up until the injury? I mean, the Jays right now are 8 games under 500. They're 13 games back in the wild card. They obviously need a whole lot of help in order to get things turned around this year, but we've seen teams catch fire before. If this is a team that somehow pushes itself to within 6-8 games of a postseason spot, and then you're talking about an impact bat like Vlad down the stretch, who knows what this conversation turns into toward the end of the year. But right now, that's all reading tea leaves and parsing things that aren't yet reality, so it's really just a bummer. Ultimately, it's just a bummer, so get well soon, Vlad, because we're all going to miss you very much. That's all that matters. Strike two this week, Sam. All-Star rosters continue to be rolled out. Texas League, Carolina League, California League All-Stars all announced. The Texas League, my prospect crush is aboard one of those rosters, and Fernando Tatis Jr., friend of the podcast, Jesus Luzardo, also a member of the Texas League. The Carolina League, some really interesting pitching talent led by Dylan Cease, the Chicago White Sox prospect of Class A Advanced Winston-Salem. It's still very strange to me, being a somewhat now old-school Carolina League person, that the Carolina League and California League no longer play against each other for their All-Star game. They are now 2 separate All-Star games. So the Carolina League has a North and South Division All-Star roster. Same goes for the Cal League, where the San Diego Padres have put some talent onto the South Division roster. Buddy Reed, who has been fantastic, the outfielder, the Florida product, and now a member of the Lake Elsinore Storm. Buddy Reed is on that roster in the South. But give me kind of your initial impressions of all these rosters and some really, really interesting matchups coming up in All-Star weekends across the minors.
Yeah, so if you go to MILB.com, which you should be going to every day, every hour of every day, to be honest, and then go to the events tab, and then under that drop down, you'll see 2018 All-Star Games. You can find all the roster announcements, all the rosters, everything that's been announced so far. I think we have all the rosters for All-Star games that are going to be in June. The Eastern League, the AAA All-Star game, those are going to be happening July 11th. Don't have those yet. Obviously, we're still a month out from those games. But all the other full season All-Star games we have rosters for right now. We talked about a couple of them last week. Tyler hit on the Texas League All-Star game. I think this is going to be the most prospect-laden one yet that we've seen. We'll see what happens the AAA All-Star game and the Eastern League All-Star game. And obviously the Futures game is chock full of prospects. But from my account, we have 5 top 100 prospects in that Texas League All-Star game. The South Division alone has 4 of them. Jesus Luzardo, who you mentioned, Fernando Tatis Jr., who you also mentioned, who has caught absolute fire since the beginning of May, really turned things around. And one of my favorite tweets of the year, when he told people, "Don't be worried about me. I was off to a slow start last year." He's put his bat where his tweets are, I guess, and really turned things around since the beginning of May. Sean Murphy, one of the best defensive catchers in the game, he'll also be on that South roster. And Cal Quantrill, San Diego Padres prospect and San Antonio Missions pitcher, will also be on that South roster. Keibert Ruiz will be on the North to kind of round out that group of 5 of top 100 prospects. For just being one league, and one league at a level that has 3 different leagues, to have 5 top 100 prospects on an all-star game is really impressive. And all 5 of these guys have certainly earned their spot. Ruiz is especially young. The Dodgers got very aggressive in pushing him to Double-A Tulsa this year. He's only 19. As a catcher, having to handle that pitching staff of guys who some have seen Triple-A, some have maybe even seen the majors, and doing pretty well so far. The offense has kind of come down a little bit for him right now. He's hitting 250 with a 667 OPS, but being that he's only a teenager at Double-A, that's still really impressive. And obviously the Texas League agrees in giving him an all-star spot. So if you want to find a particular game that I would say has a lot of talent, look, June 26th, the game's going to be in Midland. I'm pretty sure that's going to be on MILB.TV, but double check me on that. So that's the game I would be watching, and luckily that kind of has its own spot. June 19th, I think there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 All-Star games alone on June 19th. June 26th, Texas League has its night all to itself. Find that game if you can. Follow along. We'll have as much coverage as we can of that night. Should be a special one.
MILB.TV, your home for, as Sam said, all-star games all across the landscape. Yeah, I think all of these will be carried, but be sure to check MILB.TV for all of that information as it gets closer. And speaking of things that are getting closer, Strike 3, we're almost at short season opening day. The Major League Baseball draft is behind us. Short season leagues getting set to roll out across the country from east to west. That's one of the cool things about short season is you get leagues in every geographic region. You got the Arizona League and the Florida State, or in the Grapefruit League as far as the complex leagues go. But you got the Northwest League, which covers all the way to the Pacific Coast. The Pioneer League, which is kind of the Rocky Mountains, and the you can't even really call it the Southwest, but down a little bit further south. Then you've got the Southeast with the Appalachian League and the New York Penn League up in the Northeast corridor. It's cool about short season ball that if you're not in a full season minor league market, chances are you're pretty close to a short season market. But Sam, this is something that we kind of preview every year. Short season ball is so different in its dynamic from full season ball, whether it's players that are just getting into pro ball from the draft or players that have been signed and have played their first couple of seasons in the Latin American leagues, in the Dominican League, or formerly in the Venezuelan Summer League. Guys who are coming out of complex leagues in the AZL and in the GCL. They are not introductory level leagues, but they're kind of the jumping off points to getting guys into prospect status, maybe who aren't the high level draft selections. And for the high level draft selections, for a lot of those guys, their first taste of pro ball. Give us what you're looking for in short season ball as we get closer and closer to opening day.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, the GCL and the AZL, we don't typically write those leagues too much just because there's such dry action kind of. But sometimes, every now and again, a top draft pick will do something really special down there. Specifically in the AZL, I feel like the AZL is really much more geared toward offense, and some special stuff can happen there. But I think last year, Royce Lewis homered in his first GCL game, which is not anything anybody expected, even though he was the number 1 overall pick. So don't just put those leagues aside just because they happen on backfields in Arizona and Florida. We always keep an eye on those. We'll see how some of these big names kind of translate there first. Some of the college guys might be heading to some of the other leagues between, like you mentioned, the Appalachian League or the Pioneer League at rookie level, or the New York Penn or Northwest League at Class A short season. Just because a guy is not starting with a full season affiliate doesn't mean anything really. It's just where's their roster spot, where are their at-bats, where are their innings to get these guys the time they need. Just a quick note, Friday, so the day after this podcast will be going live, some of you might be hearing on this on Friday, the New York Penn League and Pioneer League and Northwest League will all have their opening days. Ben will actually be at one of them. We'll talk about that with him in a couple segments. On Monday, the AZL and GCL start, and on Tuesday is the Appalachian League. So just kind of update your minor league calendars with that. In terms of individual prospects who will be watching, I'll have a Friday tool shed on this. But to kind of give you a quick preview, 2 of them that I'm going to be keeping my eye on as short season ball starts. Kevin Maitan, now in the Angels system. As some of you may remember, he signed with the Angels back in December because he was cut from the Braves as part of their international signing rules, sanctions. He was one of the players that they lost because they had signed illegally. He entered free agency, signed with the Angels. Has not yet played for the Angels. They've held him back again. He's expected to start with rookie-level Orem to make his Angels debut. Was considered one of the best international prospects in the game when he signed back in 2016 on July 2nd, right on that July 2nd opening day of international signings. Did not really show that last year between the GCL and Appalachian League with the rookie level Danville. Ended up hitting 241 with a 629 OPS. Only hit 2 homers, struck out 49 times in 42 games there. Still only 18 years old, just turned 18 in February, so he'll be 18 for the entire season. Some questions about him physically. He might be a little too big now to play shortstop. That was part of his value, is that he was a pretty good hitting shortstop coming out of Venezuela. He's a switch hitter. That obviously helps his value as well. What have the Angels been doing with him over the extended spring training? Once they first got their hands on him, what have they been doing with him in terms of conditioning? Have they been able to turn him around? Obviously, they did not send him to Class A Burlington thinking that he could be ready for a full 140-game season there. So it's kind of interesting to see him kind of held back here, starting out again with a rookie-level affiliate. What is he going to do? Is he going to be able to make adjustments from the stuff he learned last year at Danville? I'll be keeping a close eye on that. Over in the Ranger system, just announced today, Julio Pablo Martinez, who is the Rangers' big signing this year out of Cuba. He's gotten 7 games in the Dominican Summer League after they signed him back in March. And he absolutely tore that up, went 9 for 22 with 9 walks in 7 games. He had a 606 on-base percentage. Basically, they were just getting him at bats there. The other short season leagues hadn't opened yet. This is him getting his toes dipped into minor league water. He's 22. He's probably too old for the DSL anyways. But him getting sent to Spokane. Spokane. I always want to say Spokane. I feel like I'm never an East Coaster more than when I say Spokane or when I say Oregon.
You do say Oregon?
No, I used to.
Okay.
I used to.
Go
on.
You and Rob Manfred.
Yeah.
It's not a geometric shape, East Coasters. It's a state.
Right. No, I know that.
No, but my freshman year of college, I went to Washington State University, and I said Spokane before getting out there. And then when I got out there and I heard everybody saying Spokane, I was like, I'm really glad I didn't say the name of this town, because it was like an hour south of there, and I would have felt like a complete idiot. But yeah, now you know.
Well, there we go. So he'll be with Class A short season Spokane. Now that I have that right. He's the number 60 overall prospect in baseball. So getting him stateside is going to be huge. He's got a above average hit tool, not too much power quite yet, but is a really good fielder, has plus speed, can do all sorts of exciting things. We'll love to see what he can do over 50, 60 games in the Northwest League, if that's their plan. I wouldn't be surprised, given that he is 22, to see him just get a couple games there and then moved up to, Class A Hickory or Class A Advanced down east by the end of the year. But he first has to prove himself in the Northwest League in ways he was not being tested in the Dominican Summer League. He was allowed to be a little bit more passive, like I said, with those 9 walks in 7 games. Now he's going to face pitchers who are going to be throwing in the strike zone a little bit more, challenging him a little bit more, and it's only going to get tougher as he climbs the ladder. So excited to see what happens when he is challenged. Is the Northwest League going to be that challenge for him? We won't know until games start there this Friday.
So get excited, short season markets. Your time is nearly here, and that means that we're in the full-on sprint toward Labor Day and the minor league baseball playoffs once short season gets going, which is insane. But we just got an email a little bit ago from Kelsey Hennigan, one of our writers at MILB, with the attached clinching graphic, and we only send that out when teams are getting ready to actually wrap up division titles and get their tickets punched to the postseason. So we're nearing the end of the first half in full season ball and getting short season ball underway here in the next couple of days, and that will do it for 3 strikes. We do have one foul ball in this week's episode of the show before the show. Eric Filia, the former Seattle Mariners prospect, is now a Boston Red Sox prospect. To complete an earlier trade, he is now the player to be named later in that deal. Eric Filia recently came back from a 50-game suspension for a second positive test for a drug of abuse. We know how talented he is when he's on the field. He's played 13 games so far in the Texas League this season for Arkansas. He is slashing .426, .508, .537 through his first 13 games. He's now going to be a member of the Portland Sea Dogs in the AA Eastern League. But this one, I mean, this is a potential high-reward type of acquisition for the Red Sox in this outfielder, but Eric Filia only has so many chances left as well.
Right. Yeah. No, he was a 20th round pick back in 2016. He's already 25, pretty advanced. It was a real bummer that he missed all those games. They were important developmental time. He was coming off a strong fall league. But I wanted to talk about this a little bit because I just think it's a real interesting trade in terms of the Red Sox system. Not a lot of hitting prospects in that system right now. They're dealing with their own guy who was suspended for a good chunk of games to begin the season, and Michael Chavis. He's out 80 games. He still has more time to serve on that suspension. Filia, MLB.com ranks him as the number 24 prospect in that system right now. I get that. He still might be the best hitting prospect in that system. They have his hit tool at 55 on the 28 scale. I might even put it higher. Would love to see them push him even more aggressively than the Mariners did. He just got to AA. We'd love to see him move to AAA if he's going to even come close to matching those numbers he had at AA Arkansas over a longer term in AA Portland. Some defensive questions with him. They've tried him out in the outfield. He also has some experience at first base, I believe. The bat is what's going to play here. But for a Red Sox system that's really down right now, Jay Groom had Tommy John surgery. Tanner Houck is not quite showing up the way they would have hoped as their first-round pick last year. It's kind of a disappointing time in the Red Sox system. To get Filia, somebody who does have some positive attributes, even though his clock is kind of ticking as a prospect, is kind of the shot in the arm that this system needed right now.
Eric Filia headed to the Boston Red Sox, and that'll do it for 3 strikes and our 1 foul ball for this week's episode. Sam, get us ready for our interview on this week's edition of the Show Before the Show.
Yeah, so like I mentioned, it's Cardinals number 5 prospect Andrew Knizner. Really fun conversation. We started out because the draft was last week. First he's going to introduce himself, and I explained why that is. His name is spelled kind of funny, Knizner. You'll hear him explain that and how he gets that all the time. And as somebody who has a funky last name, I can certainly relate. But we get into it about just really from the start, as a 7th round pick, how was he able to become the number 5 prospect in that system? Well, for this week's interview on the Minor League Baseball podcast, the Show Before the Show, we're joined by a St. Louis Cardinals prospect. And I don't normally have guys do this, but this is kind of a unique situation. So, Andrew, why don't you introduce yourself? I want you to say your name just so the folks out there can actually hear it. This is an audio medium. I want them to hear how you pronounce your last name.
My name is Andrew Knizner.
Knizner. Okay, there we go. Just so everybody knows, because it's spelt in a very unique way, Knizner. Do you know where that comes from?
Yeah,
where that last name has its origins from?
I think it's maybe Czech or Polish. I'm not really 100% sure, but it's a tricky last name, and a lot of people struggle with it. So I'm pretty used to people saying it wrong and spelling it wrong, so it doesn't really hurt my feelings.
Right. No, I got you. With somebody who has the last name Dykstra, who can go any different ways and how it's said, I certainly sympathize. But thanks for joining us. Thanks for calling in. You're right now with the Springfield Cardinals. How do you feel like your 2018 season has gone to this point?
I feel like it's going really well. I feel like I'm having a good season so far offensively and defensively, and really just looking to keep it up for the rest of the season.
All right, well, I want to touch on some of the stuff you got into there a little bit later, but this is the week after the 2018 Major League Baseball draft. You were picked in the 7th round in 2016 coming out of NC State. Kind of share with us what your draft story was like, what your expectations were going into that 2016 draft, and how things kind of played out from there.
I don't think I really had too many expectations going into the draft. Obviously, I thought I, played well enough at NC State to be taken decently high. So really, it was just a waiting game to just see when I would get my name called, and who would take me. So not really any expectations, but I'm glad how everything turned out. Got drafted by a great organization, St. Louis Cardinals. So I'm really thankful for the opportunity, and so far everything's been great.
Yeah, and when the Cardinals took you, in that 7th round, what kind of conversations did you have with them initially? Because like you said, coming out of NC State, that's obviously a pretty solid program in the ACC. You had a 747 OPS your junior year with 6 home runs. You played a little bit on the Cape. You did all the things to get drafted in those first 10 rounds. But what did the Cardinals say they liked about your game to kind of take you at that point?
I think I'm trying to think back to some of the conversations I had. Seems like forever ago. But they really liked my hit tool, and that's something I've always had. So they knew they were drafting a guy that could hit, and they liked my athleticism behind the plate, catching. So I think that's what they really liked was I was an athletic catcher that could hit. So that's pretty much what they told me.
Gotcha. And one thing that stood out to me about your NC State career was you started out as a third baseman there, eventually moved behind the plate. The Cardinals have done that with another catching prospect in Carson Kelly. He started out his minor league career as a third baseman, moved behind the plate. How are you able to make that transition? What do you think about your game allowed you to move there and carry on that transition into the minor leagues?
I think like what I said, I use my athleticism. And that really helps me out behind the plate. I've grown up being an infielder my whole life. I've always had good hands, so maybe that helps with receiving. And one thing that I think really helps me is I feel like I'm a pretty smart player and have a pretty high baseball IQ. So that really helps when calling games and managing games. So I think that's a very underrated aspect of catchers, is the ability to call a game and manage how the game moves. So that's another factor that I think was one of the reasons why I converted in college was because I could handle a pitching staff.
Yeah, and kind of speak to that in terms of transitioning from handling a college staff to a pro staff. Like I said, the draft was last week. A lot of catchers getting taken there. They're going to kind of get their eyes open to working with pro staffs and kind of rotating pitching staffs. Guys are always coming in, whether being promoted or demoted or rehabbing, whatever. What's allowed you to make that transition, and what was the most surprising thing about going from handling the NC State rotation to what you've seen so far through the card system?
Yeah, well, in college you have the same pitchers the whole season. So you're able to understand those guys and what they like to throw, and you have some more time to work with them. But in pro ball, everything happens fast. You can have 5 starters to open the season, and then next thing you know, 2 guys are called up or sent down. Bullpens are constantly changing. So the timeline to learn the staff quickens and speeds up. So you have to really have a game plan and really sit down with the pitchers and understand what they like to throw, when they like to throw it. Everything happens a little bit quicker in pro ball. So you really have to be patient and learn those guys as fast as possible.
Yeah, are there any kind of tricks you have to learning guys? Do you keep like a notebook with everything everybody has? Do you just try to remember it? Do you work with guys in spring training thinking like, I might see you in July? What kind of tricks have you developed over, now your 3rd season in pro ball? In spring training, I keep a notebook on guys. When I catch them, I write down a couple things, and that helps me remember later in the season, because you never know what level you're going to play at. So I try to catch as many guys as possible, and I found that really works for me. Even during the season, if a new guy comes up, I always try to get in there and catch their bullpen as quick as possible. So when I see them in the game, nothing surprises me. And then I found out that, that really helps me is being behind the plate, catching their pitches.
Gotcha. So let's kind of transition to your offensive part of the game. Like you said, the Cardinals really liked your hit tool, and you showed that off pretty quickly, hitting 319 at Johnson City in 2016. Ever since, you've been basically a 300 hitter everywhere you've gone. What do you think allowed you to make that transition so well? You know, like you said, you were a pretty good hitter in college, but even with a metal bat, it seems like you've improved making the transition to wood, playing every day, just hitting the ground running ever since. What's allowed you to see the ball so well and translate your offensive game into the pros?
I think the number one thing for me is my ability to make adjustments hitting. Each level you go to, there's different challenges, and I think for me, my ability to make adjustments is key. So understanding what pitchers are trying to do to me, figuring out, approach, changing in my approach, and also making adjustments with my mechanics and my swing. I think those are the things that really allow me to always stay sharp hitting and stay on top of my game.
So kind of along those lines, what do you feel like the biggest adjustments you've made, over the last 2 years has been?
I think mostly it's been approach. I try to keep my mechanics simple and not really change those a whole lot, because I think I have a very, very efficient swing. So really I just try to change my approach and really locking in on one zone at a time and really trying to see the ball and just make consistent contact and drive gaps.
Mm. Do you feel like that's not something you were doing before, or something that you needed to have your eyes open to, after seeing different arms?
I feel like I've always done that. It's just I think as I've gotten more at bats under my belt, I've really fine-tuned my approach and I stick to it. I feel like when I was younger in college, I would change my approach too quickly. But now with at bats under my belt, I'm starting to understand what type of hitter I am. I'm able to keep my approach and lock into into my hot zones more often.
Gotcha. So yeah, let's talk about this kind of season right now. You're currently with AA Springfield. You got 14 games with AAA Memphis in the middle of the year. You got bumped back down, not because of anything you did, but just because of a kind of roster crunch. What has that kind of been like, getting a small taste out of AAA, and what were you able to take away from those 3 weeks or so?
Yeah, I thought it was great. AAA is a lot different than AA. You're facing some older players who've been around, who know how to play the game on both sides of the ball. So in AAA, I noticed pitchers are, they're throwing 2-0 changeups, 3-1 sliders. They're guys that have command of all their pitches, which, really approach comes into play there. So you have to stick to your plan and not swing at what the pitcher wants you to swing at. So that's something I learned offensively, and behind the plate calling games, you face guys that are, have a lot of big league experience and who are smart, patient hitters. So you really have to figure out quickly what pitches they're trying to hit, and you have to work with the staff to kind of keep those guys off balance.
Yeah, and what was the most eye-opening moment you had? Was there a specific pitcher you faced who, like you said, was a former big leaguer who you always thought, like, oh, when I face this guy, I know I've made it? Or what was the biggest, or like I said, most eye-opening experience you had during your time with Memphis?
I don't think there was any eye-opening moment. It's still playing baseball. It's nothing really is that dramatic from AA to AAA. So I just try to go up there and just do what I did, do what I had been doing in the minor leagues, and just continue that. So nothing really eye-opening. I was just going up there playing the game hard and trying to do what I could to help the team win.
Yeah, and what was the conversation like when they bumped you back down? Like I said, part of that is for a roster crunch. They want to make sure you're playing every day, or as close to every day as a catcher can. But did they send you up with the understanding that it was going to be temporary? Or, you hit 333 with an 844 OPS there. It wasn't like you were struggling by any means. What was that? How'd you kind of handle that situation of, I did well, but I'm still going back down to Springfield?
Yeah, like you said, it's a roster crunch thing where they want me to catch as much as I can, and I wasn't going to be able to do that in AAA, rotating every other day with Carson Kelly. So they sent me back down to AA to catch as much as I can. And I totally understand it. It's it's a process, and it's their plan that they have for me. So the job doesn't change from AAA to AA. It's get better in every phase of the game. So I totally understand, and I'm just trying to put the work in to get back to AAA and then get to St. Louis as fast as I can.
Yeah, how do you kind of look at your standing in the organization? I mean, like I said, you were a 7th-round pick, and now all of a sudden you are one of the best catching prospects in a system that is full of catching prospects. Like we mentioned, Carson Kelly, and obviously Yadi Molina is the guy in St. Louis, signed an extension for that. How do you kind of view the way you've pushed the envelope and pushed your way into that conversation to the point where St. Louis fans want to see you at the highest level possible?
Yeah. Well, I really don't think draft position has much to do with it. I knew once I got into pro ball that playing every day, my tools would take over and my skills would take over, and I would develop into a pretty good baseball player. So I don't think really draft order has anything to do with it. But it's I'm just going out there trying to compete and get better every single day. So eventually, hopefully, I can make it up, to St. Louis, like I said, as soon as possible. So.
Yeah, gotcha. And one sign they showed that they thought you were at least fairly close or wanted to get you at least a taste is they invited you, as a non-roster invitee to spring training this year. That's the second year they've done that. They did that in 2017 as well. What is it like amongst that catching core? When you guys all are together at the beginning of spring training, kind of working with each other and kind of getting to rub elbows with some of those guys. What was that like in February and March?
Well, it's a great learning opportunity, and it's something I'm very thankful for. I was catching every single day beside Yadi Molina and Carson Kelly, 2 guys that are in the organization that are great catchers, and along with learning from Mike Matheny, who was also a very good catcher. So it's a great learning opportunity and a great time for me to fine-tune my skills.
What do you feel like is the biggest thing you picked up from any of those guys, between Kelly, Matheny, or Yadi?
I think the biggest thing is just, and I actually learned this just from watching Yadi, is his mindset and his preparation. It doesn't matter, whether he's preparing for Game 7 of the World Series or just a spring training practice. He was always locked in, and he was ready to compete and get better. So that's one thing that really stuck out to me, and that's one thing that I put into my game is that preparation and always being ready.
Yeah, and those 3 guys we've mentioned, all 3 of you are pretty good hitters and have a track record of being pretty good hitters. You mentioned working with the staff and having to really be clued in on certain pitches and all that. Do you feel like it's an advantage being a catcher and obviously you guys it's a physically demanding position, but as somebody who doesn't strike out much, you make a lot of contact, have a good hit tool. How do you feel like it translates, defensively from watching that many pitches to being able to put that into play when you step into the box yourself?
I think it helps tremendously. Once I started catching, I really understood the art of game calling, and now I'm able to think along with the opposing catcher and the opposing pitcher, and I'm like, well, what would I throw myself in this situation? And it just kind of helps me think through the at bats, and I think it really has helped develop my mental game hitting, because I know how pitchers and catchers want to set me up because I put myself in their shoes when I'm hitting.
Oh, there you go. That certainly helps. So we'll send you out on this one. As a catcher, like you said, you caught a lot of guys this year. Who's a pitcher you have caught either in Springfield, in Memphis, or in spring training that you feel like isn't getting talked up that much but has really impressed you in the times you've caught him?
Oh, that's a tough question. It's just tough because the Cardinals, I feel like we're loaded with pitching talent. guys like Dakota Hudson and Ryan Helsley, Connor Jones, from AAA down to rookie ball, we're loaded with talent. So I'm just gonna have to let those guys keep letting their pitching do the talking, and I'm sure everybody that throws will one day make it. So I'm actually really grateful with the pitching staffs we have, that it makes my job really easy calling games, because their stuff is really good, and they take care of getting those hitters out. So it's fun catching all those guys.
Right. Yeah, and you mentioned Connor Jones. We're talking here on Wednesday. Just last night, he took a no-hitter into the 7th. And he's the 19th ranked prospect in that system. So that just speaks to the depth of arms you mentioned in that card system.
Yeah,
Andrew,
exactly.
I'll send you out on this one. As somebody who has tasted AAA, as somebody who's been in big league spring training a little bit, what is the kind of final piece of the puzzle, that one missing piece you feel like you need to kind of complete in your game to knock down the door to St. Louis?
That's a good question. I think all my skills are there. I think my hit tool's there. I think defensively, I'm good. And but the one thing that everybody searches for in baseball is that consistency. And I think that's just one thing that I think will really push me over the top, is becoming consistent in all phases of the game. I feel like I'm getting close, but you can't rush the reps and the at bats and the innings behind the plate. So I feel like once I get some more innings and more at bats under my belt, the consistency will be there, and I'll be ready to go.
All right, very cool. Well, Andrew Knizner, thank you for talking to us. Good luck going forward, whether that's in Springfield or Memphis or even St. Louis the rest of the way this season. Good luck, and thank you again for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Got a lot to discuss this week with Benjamin Hill, who joins us for our weekly conversation. Hello, Ben.
Hello, Tyler, and hello, Sam Dykstra, sitting to my left.
Hello, Ben.
Sam was out sick yesterday.
I was out sick.
Really?
Yeah, and I'm a little concerned with him sitting this close to my left.
Yeah. What was the ailment?
Your basic cold.
Okay.
So
highly
basic
contagious.
Common cold, yeah.
So a good thing to be sitting next to somebody who had yesterday.
If I could just sit in the corner and shout my questions, that's fine.
Please do so.
Just yell from the background. Well, let's get started in this week's edition of our Ben's Biz Banter. We're in road trip season. Road trip season is hot on the trot, and Ben's got a new one coming up this weekend. And is that even an appropriate term? I don't even know what that means. What's the next trip?
Yeah, I'm calling it the Hot on the Trot trip.
It's
as of 2 seconds ago, it is now the Hot on the Trot trip.
Yeah, I am hot on the trot to the Midwest, to the beautiful Midwest. Kind of like my last trip, where I hit spots fairly local to New York City, where I live, love, laugh, and learn. All the stops on my first trip were places I'd been, but I hadn't been generally in 6, 7, 8 years, and it's going to be the same thing with this trip. I'm talking to you here on Wednesday. Tomorrow, when the podcast debuts, June 14th, I will be visiting the Lake County Captains in suburban Cleveland area. Then the next day, the Mahoning Valley Scrappers. That's the New York Penn League opening day, so that'll be a special night. Hitting Toledo on Saturday. It is You Will Do Better in Toledo night, and that's a reference to a longstanding city motto or slogan, You Will Do Better in Toledo. So I'd say that every Mud Hens game is a celebration of Toledo, but this one will even more so be that. Then on Father's Day, heading over to Fort Wayne to see, of course, the Tin Caps at Parkview Field. And then after an off day, which won't be an off day per se, but a day in which I'm not going to a game, on June 18th, I'll drive up to Lansing. And then the next day, I will attend the Midwest League All-Star Game hosted by the Lansing Lugnuts. And should be a lot of fun. So, only 5 teams on this trip, but got an opening day, got an all-star game. All of these places I haven't been for at least 5 years, and in some cases 7 or 8 years. And of course, I've got a lot of story ideas and things I've agreed to that in retrospect or futurespect at this point, maybe I should not have agreed to. It's just as taking the Toledo Mud Hens chill challenge and spending a whole inning in an ice tub for some reason. But
are you going to be doing anything else, or are people going to be like throwing balls trying to get you into the ice tub, or are you just going to be literally chilling in an ice tub?
Yeah, I think I have to stay in that for a whole inning to win prizes for a section. And this is what happens. I take these things so seriously because I'm kind of prone to guilt as an individual, and I will feel so bad if I let the people down who I could have won a prize for.
So the road trip coming up, and is one. How many more do you have this season? Because we're just now getting close to short season time, and there are road trips that come along with that. But you're kind of hitting the midway point of the road trips this year.
More or less. After this trip, I'll be approaching half.
Okay.
But then I have my biggest trip in July, starting with the Florida Fire Frogs in the Orlando area, and that's a big one, working my way up all the way to Asheville and Johnson City. Then more local stuff in August. Very New York Penn League centric, and then in September flying out to your neck of the woods, Tyler. I mean, in the sense that the same state is the same neck of the woods, but ending the road trip season in September with the Colorado Springs Sky Sox and Grand Junction Rockies.
Getting to the center of the minor league season. By the way, Hot on the Trot turns up basically no Google results. Hot to Trot, which is a phrase that people have actually heard, did not know this, but in 1988 was a movie featuring Bobcat Goldthwait and John Candy. Had no idea.
I don't think I saw that movie, but I remember as a kid going to video stores and just always seeing Hot to Trot on the shelves.
Because nobody was renting it, because they were like, why would I want to watch this Bobcat Goldthwait vehicle? No, thank you.
If you were a fan of Hot to Trot, please email.
Please let us know.
Please email the show before.
Get in touch with your Hot to Trot trivia. Let's move on to one of the more interesting minor league weekly rebrands of the 2018 season for a variety of reasons. The Staten Island Yankees for Saturday home games in 2018 will become the Staten Island Pizza Rats. And if this sounds like something that we have discussed on the show before, it's because it is. In 2016, a video went viral that may or may not have been staged by an actress of a rat carrying a slice of pizza down a staircase in a New York City subway station. Pizza Rat went insane. It was one of those things where, like, I logged on to Twitter, like, toward the tail end of the initial freak out of Pizza Rat that day. It was just like, I don't know what the hell's going on, and immediately logged off. But it's interesting because the Staten Island Yankees, after that season, decided that they were going to rebrand. They put out 5 grandiose, ludicrous nickname suggestions. One of them was Pizza Rats. That was overwhelmingly suggested or selected by fans in a Name the Team contest. But the rebellion was so strong from the loud contingent, including a city councilwoman in Staten Island who threatened legislation to prevent the rebrand, that Staten Island continued on as the Yankees. And I guess this is the happy compromise. But it's interesting because it kind of seems like, and maybe the merchandise sales aren't suggesting this, but it kind of seems like the window is past. Like the Pizza Rats meme was funny 2 years ago, and I guess it's still getting its notoriety. There are still stories all over the place about it. They are not fully rebranding. There have been headlines that are, the Staten Island Yankees have become the Pizza Rats. That's not accurate. It's just Saturday home games. But Ben, kind of give me your thoughts on that, because we haven't really seen this we've seen teams back off of crazy nickname changes before, but something that was such a momentary thing that happened, then to be brought back 2 years later, it's just kind of an interesting one.
Yeah. I think this is, in a sense, along the lines of a what could have been night promo, which have been fairly common over the last 5 years or so, where teams have an option. They list the finalists in a rebranding contest, and then a name that they didn't pick, they'll suit up as saying what could have been. I mean, Tyler, you're making the point that Pizza Rat, is an internet phenomenon, as a meme. I think the time has certainly come and gone for that. But I think what Staten Island found is that, one, they made such an impact, in their own baseball context with even suggesting that name. And two, I think they find that Pizza Rats, pizza and rats and the combination thereof is just something that they feel can be very strong branding, that at this point they, I think, don't mind if it completely stands alone from the internet sensation and the degree to which people remember it. Yesterday, they announced that they would be the Pizza Rats every Saturday home game on Monday. And, of course, the New York Penn League season, of which the Staten Island Yankees are a part, starts Friday. So they announced this on Monday. And yesterday, Will Smith, the team's president, whose wife is named Jada, just as an aside.
No way. Of course.
Yeah. Actually, I think we have discussed that before. It's
just amazing. He was in Manhattan yesterday. Our offices here are located in Chelsea. So he was kind of doing a little mini media blitz for the Pizza Rat. So he came by. He gave me a hat, which comes in a pizza box. It's a very impressive bit of branding. I did an interview with him, and I'm working on that story right now, talking about this, I think, pretty unique process of how it went from a finalist. It went from an internet sensation to a finalist in a Name the Team contest, to the name that the team chose internally, to having to back away from that name for a variety of reasons. And then now, 2 years later, to be suiting up on Saturday. What a saga. The saga of the Pizza Rats. And I'm glad. As a New York City resident, I've always liked going to Staten Island Yankees games. And, they've often struggled, I think, differentiating themselves in obviously what is a very crowded sports landscape. And I think they are in need of things like this and more things like this to get people really talking about them. Because, when you're in New York City, Class A short season baseball isn't going to be anyone's first topic of conversation. So even if there's going to be a segment of people saying this is ridiculous and this is horrible, you're still talking about Class A short season baseball in New York City, which I almost guarantee you weren't talking about before. And, that's half the battle right there.
Well, let's go from one kind of food-themed rebrand to another. There are some interesting ones. The Beer City Bung Hammers. I just want to leave that name out there. Can you explain? But we have warring beer cities now. Because
in a PG-rated fashion.
Yeah, Asheville called itself Beer City. Now we've got a secondary Beer City. Explain Beer City Bung Hammers to us.
Yeah, and I feel like the Beer City Bung Hammers, this is a minor league team that's going to suit up as the Bung Hammers.
It sounds like something out of Beavis and Butthead.
It really does.
25 years ago.
I think it's kind of gotten a little overshadowed. I'm a little surprised that this hasn't gone as viral as Pizza Rats, because it is very ridiculous. This is the West Michigan Whitecaps, who obviously play in West Michigan. Technically, they play in Comstock, Michigan, but they represent Grand Rapids. And the team is saying, in Grand Rapids, we are Beer City. And, Asheville's already called themselves the Beer City Tourists. They can battle it out about who's Beer City, and anyone else who wants to jump in a Beer City fight, go at it. But the West Michigan Whitecaps, and this is in August, I believe. This is August 4th. Thank you, Sam. August 4th, they are going to suit up as the Beer City Bung Hammers with the slogan of hitting the sweet spot. I feel like a 14-year-old kid reading this. So there's a press release that goes on to describe what a bung hammer is. And here, I'll read this verbatim from the press release. You may be asking, what is a bung hammer? The answer to that is a bung hammer is a specialized tool for sealing and unsealing the bung in the side of a barrel when aging craft beer. Now, to answer the question of what is a bung is a wooden stopper for the opening in a barrel. So the bung hammer is used to fit the bung into the bung hole of a barrel. So if you got a bung, you need to put it into the bung hole. And for that, you need a bung hammer. Right. The West Michigan Whitecaps on August 4th are going to be the Beer City Bung Hammers, and this all makes sense and is appropriate.
It actually does answer what a bunghole is. And now the 7-year-old version of myself that snuck watching Beavis and Butthead episodes on MTV understands where the genesis of that term was.
Yeah, it was just because they love craft beer.
Yeah, that was all it was. That had to be it. AC/DC t-shirts and craft beer. That was the whole thing.
That was definitely a 1990s phenomenon, was AC/DC and craft beer.
Oh man! All right, so we've covered that. We know the bunghole thing. We also know that the Brats, in the same league, the Wisconsin Timber Rattlers, have suited up as the Brats in a very Wisconsin/German/beer/bratwurst themed getup, which it featured baseball looking lederhosen and such. Give us a rundown on the Brats. This is a very well executed look.
Yeah, this is an article I just wrote that's on the site right now, milb.com, of course, a promo watch column. This past Saturday, June 9th, the Wisconsin Timber Rattlers suited up as the Brats, as in a bratwurst. So, we've talked a lot about temporary food identities today and in other weeks, of course. I think the reason we're talking about the brats right now, and the reason I wrote about it, is yes, there is a brat logo on the cap, but the uniforms feature high socks, lederhosen, plaid shirts, suspenders. And if you haven't seen this yet, check out my article on MILB.com, Google Wisconsin brats, and just check these uniforms, because minor league baseball gets more and more ridiculous, it seems, with every passing moment. But these might be the most ridiculous uniforms we've seen yet. Of course, it's not literal suspenders, but the whole uniform approximates a Bavarian Oktoberfest sort of motif. And
they are short pants.
Yeah, they are literally short pants with the high socks. Yeah. It's baseball pants approximating lederhosen. So right. I don't think we've ever seen that before, along with the suspenders and the plaid. So a huge celebration of bratwurst. And, the Timber Rattlers sell brats, 6 varieties every day at the ballpark. So, sometimes these food rebrandings, the teams don't actually sell the item, and they might for that one night. But, Wisconsin Timber Rattlers, they're living the brat life every day.
It's a pretty amazing look. And the story is up on the site right now, MILB.com. Benjamin Hill's on Twitter at BensBiz. The blog is bensbiz.mlblogs.com. And this is, if you are a person trying to eat healthy, the latest trends in minor league baseball are just not for you. Because if you look at the Beer City Bunghammers and the brats and the pizza rats and whatever, it just makes me want to eat the most disgusting food on earth. And it'll all be delicious. Maybe not the most life-giving, but it's, that's minor league baseball in 2018. Embrace it.
Yeah, and I would say it's been minor league baseball every year for a long time, but it's just getting more and more over the top. And
now it's just being literally worn on everyone's sleeves and chests and everywhere else. Thanks, Ben.
Thank you, Tyler, and Sam Dykstra sitting to my left. I hope you feel better.
Thank you.
Finishing off this week's episode of the Show Before the Show podcast, Benjamin Hill once more on Twitter at BensBiz, and a big thanks to him. And we're getting set for MILB TV to roll out its full slate of games for the 2018 season as short season teams get into the pool. Sam, what are you watching this weekend?
Yeah, so this week it will be beginning of short season. Happy short season opening day to you and yours for everybody. As I mentioned, Friday is opening day in the New York Penn League, so what better way to spend it than watching Brooklyn, Staten Island, intra-city matchup. I think they might call it like the Battle of the Bridge because the Verrazano-Narrows Bridge kind of connects Coney Island-ish area with Staten Island, obviously. And it's always kind of cool because those two teams, they play like a 3-game set coming up, but one game is at Staten Island, the next game is at Brooklyn, and then the next game is at Staten Island again. So it's something you don't often see in minor league baseball or really baseball anywhere, where it's a 3-game series. Yeah. So the games that will be in Staten Island, so on Friday and Sunday, will both be on MILB.tv. Go check them out. I know I've talked to players before who have been through those games, and they're like, there's a little bit of a rivalry here, we guess, considering it's Yankees and Mets prospects and that they're right next to each other. And if you need a New York Penn League rivalry, this is as good as anything. So go see those two sides battle it out starting Friday. Or if you don't catch that game, circle back and watch them on Sunday.
It's not going to be slices versus pizza rats, but
no,
it's the next best thing.
Yeah,
and if you can't get enough short season ball, the Pioneer League gets started on Friday night, and 2 Pioneer League teams that have MILB.TV coverage will be at home. Grand Junction will be playing host to Orem. That game is coming up at 8:40 Eastern Time on Friday night, and at 9:15 Eastern Time Friday night, Ogden pays a visit to Idaho Falls. So Orem, the Angels affiliate, Grand Junction, a Rockies affiliate, Ogden, a Dodgers affiliate, Idaho Falls, a Royals affiliate. You're a fan of those teams or a fan of guys getting their first minor league experience under their belts, you can tune in at MILB.tv. And with that, that'll do it for this week's episode of The Show Before the Show. You can get in touch, podcast at MILB.com. Sam is on Twitter. He's at Sam Dykstra, MILB. I am at Tyler Mon. And thanks for tuning in. Enjoy the starts of short season ball. We'll talk to you next week.